before we do, this is going to be its own segment of the stream. I hope you're ready. I will mute. This will be off screen once it's over. It's not going to be 30 minutes. It's going to be a pretty quick one. Backrooms, spoilers, real fast. Okay. Thank you, Fuzzy. I'm gonna come out and say it. Please, no spoilers. It could not be more obvious. It's gonna be quick. It's gonna be like 10 minutes at most. So I think that the majority of the peeps watching, and also this is gonna be so like esoteric, it's probably not gonna be something you notice during the film unless you're told. The characters were probably supposed to be very disassociative even before the movie began. I think that's like a big thing that people missed. And because they were very disassociative before the movie began, I think that's what was coloring the entire movie. They were normal people. They were normal people with dissociative disorders, I believe. I think that Clark obviously had like a more obvious thing that he was dissociating with in terms of like what he was thinking about a lot. And I think also that Mary had a similar thing going on, but for a different set of emotions and reasons. Clark was a vulnerable narcissist. I think he was. I kind of liked like his character in a lot of ways, but he was very much that. That being said, I think that his therapist was probably a pretty bad match for his issues. I loved Clark. Clark was really fun. I liked his character a lot too. He had legit gripes he was working through, yes. I woke up for an 8 a.m. showing and you're right on with your analysis from months ago. Yeah, the one thing I didn't, I kind of thought that the characters were going to be very disassociative and stuff. Clark's biggest issue is that he refused to accept the bad stuff just kind of happens to people all the time. I think that's kind of not exactly where he was. Okay, so I think this was it. And this, you can disagree with me on this. You can totally disagree with me. I think that was Mary's thing. I think Clark's was that he had to probably start changing if he wanted the reality he lived in to be different. He was marketing his stuff primarily with like his larger than life character. And I think that we see that Mary is someone that dealt with a lot of very intense stuff like when she was younger. She had a very mentally ill mom, and that was making her disassociate away from like her life that she was living then. You even see them kind of dealing with similar problems. So the film was about disassociative characters walking into a place that is highly physically disassociative. So yeah, she was stuck in her own loop she created. Yes, she was stuck within her own loop, and she was stuck within a place where she was not very healthy. So she was not very healthy. You see her at one point see like a mother and a child, and because that triggers her emotional response and her anxiety, she like has to excuse herself from the situation because she's getting so nervous. I think that was Mary's thing. We also see that that's kind of played out like in like the physicality of the Backrooms itself. I really enjoyed the movie, but I personally was hoping for more people from Async. I think the thing is, this was supposed to be about two completely normal people. Two completely normal people in the Backrooms, and also kind of dealing with similar problems that would allow them to feel like the Backrooms were a similar escape. So, self-insert writing? No, I don't think that Kane Pixels is anywhere near like the types of people that he chose to portray in the movie. Kane Pixels is like a 20-year-old. The characters are very different. Kane Pixels is very obviously like, I don't mean to be rude to him, but he's definitely a hyper-obsessive autistic guy that like has something that he really, really likes, and like that's like his one thing, and he's not gonna stop thinking about it, and that's the Backrooms. I think what he wanted to do is he wanted to show two people that were already disassociative going into a place that was disassociative. Clark was constantly returning to a very pivotal moment where like he was very much like emotionally not feeling good. Like he feels like it was an emotional cataclysm like or something like internally. And because of that, he can't really let go or start to change or go in a different direction. He can't really just accept that like maybe he should like, because the thing is he's having a hard time changing in like the movie itself. I think it's very important that they were normal people. Yes, I think it's very important that they were normal people and we saw it from their perspective. We see that normal people, when they're just interacting with the Backrooms, have a profoundly intense impact on it. A lot of people seem confused about a lot of the things happening throughout it, but the biggest thing seems to be is even if you just go into the Backrooms, a normal person completely unrelated to everything, it starts to generate based on your experiences, the things in your life, etc. At least Clark didn't have to pay that overtime. No. I thought the ending scene was pretty neat thematically, and this conversation between the therapist and scientist was similar to the one she had with Clark. Yes, it was very similar to the one she had with Clark. I personally think that the therapist was like kind of avoiding like her negative feelings and instead trying to fix Clark. They were very similar people. How do I put it? I heard some kids saying they turned her into a statue, and I was baffled by what they thought. We're gonna go through the movie from beginning to end here, based on what I can remember at least. So it starts off with Clark kind of living his life and going into a therapist's session with his therapist Mary. They're talking about a instance where he wanted to go home and I guess avoid the consequences of his actions when it came to his wife getting upset with him for doing something that she asked him not to, and was something that would upset his wife. So yeah, the roleplay, yes. The therapist asks him to roleplay it. She was going to be his wife and he was going to be himself. And you see him start to get very upset very quickly and start to yell and start to talk about how he needs to do everything and how it's very hard for him and stuff like that. He's a very nice person, it seems like, outside of that. But he says that, like, he doesn't know how to change himself, and he doesn't know how to, like, become a better person. He feels like he hurts everyone, so he's isolated himself. So he's just isolating at the start of the movie. You then see that that's how it starts. We then go into where he's running, like, a furniture discount store that's, like, very unable to keep itself afloat. He goes in and he sees that someone has just written the words "rip off" across of it, and he's not happy about that. He drinks a lot, he does drink a lot, he is an alcoholic. But I don't think that's the main point of, like, the problems with this character. I think the big thing is that he is trying to emotionally detach. He's trying to emotionally detach and go, like, this person can't be upset. Like, this is crazy. And then he keeps trying to emotionally detach and keep trying to emotionally detach, and that's where his drinking problem seems to have come in. On the other hand, Mary is continuing their therapy sessions. We see that, like, he goes into his store, and then he starts to have these electrical issues. And when he finds those electrical issues, he calls someone in and he's like, I don't know what to do. This sucks. My entire life sucks. Everything sucks. He's filming his own commercials and putting them on TV where he's going like, I'm a pirate. Come on, come buy some of my furniture. These bargains are insane. Where I thought the movie was going to go is that he discovers the Backrooms and then he starts pulling furniture out of there to sell. Maybe that was cut from the movie because I'm like 95% sure I'm like 95% sure that was like a plot point because like a lot of furniture does go missing from the Backrooms and he does start pulling it out of there. Like, I thought that it was going to be something where like he was going to be pricing it very low, but I think maybe like people didn't like it or the runtime was weird or it upset like I'd love to see a director's cut with everything in it because I feel like that was supposed to be in it. Like, I'm 95% sure. I think he would have started selling if he didn't immediately get obsessed with exploring the Backrooms. That's true. But that being said, he finds the Backrooms and through an electrical glitch, eventually, he's living in his like furniture store because his wife has kicked him out. He eventually just finds it. It's all very well done. The atmosphere is really good, but I think it also goes with someone that's disassociating. So he was very disassociative because he was drinking. He was very disassociative because he was avoiding life's problems where he had like emotional issues with like his wife. He then, after he finds the Backrooms, goes back to his therapist and is like, oh my God, the Backrooms. This is not the conversation they had. I could understand why people would be saying it's bad if that was what he said. He did not say that to her. But he starts to get very aggressive about going like, oh my God, it was so cool, it was so insane. And then he wants to show someone it and also document it. I guess like employee and her boyfriend on their day off and goes like, please come in, bring your camcorder, I need you to rent it, come here like immediately. He gets that camera over there with those guys. And he's kind of just so excited about showing someone the Backrooms and exploring it that he puts one of them in a very dangerous situation. All of this is interspersed with like a lot of Backrooms, by the way. Like, they're becoming more disassociative and they're starting to detach from reality more and more, I think is what's happening. Assistant manager and her student boyfriend. Yes. Renting a camera from school. Yes. One of the things that's interesting is that you actually see that one of them is, like, they're wearing a shirt that says Stop Apartheid. First of all, a bunch of people are gonna, like, Google that, like, probably when they get back home. And then they're gonna think about what that is, which is kind of funny. I think he did that on purpose. Secondly, you actually see that same shirt when one of them is, like, going in to explore more. So it's either that fella that was wearing that shirt generating more of those, which I think it could have been since there were big piles of clothes, or it could have been that Clark was generating it. Also tried to get get Mary interested about it, but got pissed that she wasn't. Yes, he was also very upset that Mary thought he was having a manic episode, but he also seemed to understand why she thought that at the time. He was like, this is so weird. This is so weird. Then he leaves. After that therapy session, he goes and does that. The camera operator does actually get McMurdered. Then him and his floor manager of the store, big stretch though, she's kind of just like a nice, like, I don't know, like young person, it seems like. It was fantastical to him, it was. But she and him get pushed deeper into the back rooms, and then they have to start running away, making sure they're gonna be okay. They're just freaking out. They get separated immediately. And then we see that Clark goes deeper and deeper in, and he eventually encounters something that is not human, and something that is really scary. And then we eventually see him reach an end point, and we see something pick up the camera, and then it goes out. After that, we cut back to the therapist. We see the therapist go in there and try can you spoil it if the cutout was the caveman? If you like the caveman cutout, you're gonna like the movie, I'll say that much. Clark desperately craving for approval. Mary was super strange for me. Like, what does Clark gain? He knows the difference between Mary and his wife, but he doesn't seem to care. Well, the thing is, I don't think that he could reach out to his wife and get her to go to the back rooms. And he didn't seem to have okay, so this is the big thing. It seemed like Clark was trying to resolve his emotional issues, though not with any sort of desire to change his rage-related feelings, or like, go like, okay, yeah, surrogate closer. Yes, he saw her as someone that would actually go there, and then he already had, we find out, a stand-in for his wife. So his wife turned out to be one of the how do I put this? He generated his wife again by half remembering her, and the Backrooms just kept trying to make copies and copies and copies. So at that point, his wife was very off-looking and very weird. We see her, and we notice that that was one of the monsters that was chasing him. And what happens is he starts to explain to his therapist after something very intense happens. Like, he lures her in there, he grabs her, knocks her out, throws her into like this weird, like, Resident Evil, like, family, like, dining situation where, like, it's like they're just like at the table and they're like, oh my god, why are we here? And what happens is, essentially starts to just explain what he understands of the Backrooms from someone that was a normal person's perspective. It's not from a scientist's perspective, it's not from like anyone else's perspective, it's from the perspective of someone that was disassociating very heavily. Was it confirmed to be a copy of his wife? Like 100% I got that feeling, but I think it was confirmed because what happens is he says like these are copies of people, and he says let's role play this again. He's gone completely off the deep end at this point because he's been just disassociating in the Backrooms. He explained the plot to the audience. He explained quite a bit. I think it was actually a little bit heavy-handed for the Backrooms, which is funny because everyone else says they didn't explain anything. People have been very divisive about that, which is kind of funny. But yes, I do think it was his wife because he says, okay, well, here you go. Let me make the role-playing better. And then he goes and scalps the thing that, like the monster, with red hair, and puts the red hair over his therapist's head. So, yeah, I think that was supposed to imply, like, that is definitely his wife because he's taking one of her physical attributes and putting it on the therapist. Kind of dismissively waves at her when describing each of them too. Yes, I think we're supposed to take away from that like his wife was like a white woman with red hair and go like, okay, that must have been her. That doesn't look exactly like her. It's probably not someone that is like supposed to be like a one-for-one. Like, it's obviously not going to look like her since it's a monstrous entity, but I think we were supposed to take away that it shared features of his wife, and she was very probably like a white woman with red hair, like, is the big takeaway. Like, those are the things that he remembered most viscerally about her, and those are the things that the Backrooms kept trying to replicate over and over. I think the other thing was that she was very subservient compared to some other entities that we see, which might mean that he was remembering her as very subservient in some ways. There are clearly copies that predated his issues, but it could be, yes. At this point, we see the therapist freak out and just say that he's right about everything, which she didn't want to get stabbed. He also talked about how you could eat the things in the Backrooms that were monsters. Really weird. I think people that didn't realize that somehow missed the picture of him and his wife. I didn't even see the picture of him and his wife, but like I thought it was just so heavily implied that it was supposed to be the monster that was like a white woman with red hair that I was just like, okay, cool. That's his wife probably. When we see Big Clark, it doesn't make sense that it attacks Small Clark later unless he specifically changed his psyche and kind of knows he's full of it, right? He probably, yeah, he generated a copy of himself, and it was very larger than life. It was very imposing, and it was very aggressive. So I think he knew that he was truly like cruel deep down, and that it was cruelly wrong of him to just kind of keep going in the direction he was and not changing. Like, that's when it appears, and he's just like, oh look, it's me, it's okay. But he knows that there's an inherent cruelty when he's remembering himself, even deep down. So his wife was more successful than him? No, his wife was unemployed and going to school, but he just was really unhappy with her. But his wife was just, he was angry at her because he had been drinking, he came home late, and then he was very pissed off about, like, his wife confronting him. Like, the thing is, it's also implied that, like, he had a lot of issues, like, in terms of, like, drinking, in terms of, like, being kind of more intense when confronted about it. Big Clark ate Little Clark because he gave himself up to the cycle. I don't know if that was supposed to be what it was. I think he just thought he wasn't going to be harmed by, like, the Backrooms entity because he had so much control over everyone finally. He felt like he had control in that area, and he kept becoming more disassociative to his day-to-day life where he lacked control. He didn't really have control over anyone or anything, so when he was around all of the entities, he was like, oh, look, I finally get this. I finally have everything. I have a theory about, I believe the scientists, other people saw him in the Backrooms, saw the commercial, generated a monster of him larger than others. Dude, that could also be it. The Backrooms wife running, well, we actually don't know if that dude was, like, close to, like, there, though. Like, it seems to be, like, generating based on, like, proximity, like, what we, like, that goes into, like, the lore and stuff, though. Backrooms wife running away when, Big Clark gave me vibes that he was maybe abusive to her. Well, that's the other thing. So, how do I put this? So, he did see her probably as, like, an extension of his wife, like someone he could try to resolve this stuff with, like in therapy. A lot of people try to find therapists that are close to, like, people that they feel like will resolve the problem in terms of them being male, female, younger, older, stuff like that, which is just kind of odd, but happens consistently. So if you feel like you can open up most with, like, a older, like, female therapist, it might be something where you might have some issues with your mom. If you feel like you can only open up to older male therapists, you might have some issues with your dad. If you feel like you can only open up to, like, younger female therapists, you might have some issues with, like, your sister, your daughter, stuff like that. So it kind of makes sense for, like, his character. They were probably around the same age. Mary had her own character arc where, looking okay today too, where she kind of went through this thing where she had the same issues Clark did in terms of her not evolving emotionally. She didn't have the same rage issues, but she was returning to an emotional point over and over and over again, and kind of going back into a memory over and over and over again, which I think is why he chose those specific types of characters to represent the Backrooms film. I don't think it was because he was doing self-inserts or normal people or anything like that. I think he specifically wanted disassociative characters that were returning to memories over and over and over and over again. So with Clark, it was a memory of his wife and the last fight they had over and over and over. And with her, it was when her mother was abusive towards her when she was younger and her mother had a severe mental illness, and when her mother was catatonically ill. What happens eventually is that you see that she was probably trying to get through her issues with her own memory she was returning to with Clark and with the therapy that she was doing for others, because she shouts that he doesn't need to change and pretty much that, like, she can't fix people. And she can't change people. It seemed like she was trying to, what's the word? She was trying to, like, act out stuff with Clark as well when it came to, like, trying to fix her own parent. Which I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. Don't you worry. I don't have any issue with that. She tried to help and couldn't leave each time. Yes. So she was trying to help others she felt were mentally ill, and she was probably also used to people yelling at her because she had gotten so used to that during her childhood. So she was used to people being very mentally unwell and being unable to change. And she was trying to fix them by taking a job in mental health services, which happens to a lot of people with mental health issues. Also, yo, Fit Fat Gamer, hope you're doing well. We're talking about the Backrooms. Thank you for being here for 16 months. That outburst was a regression to the learned helplessness she felt as a child? Yes. kept returning to those memories as well, and kept returning to those memories, and kept returning to those memories, and kept returning to those memories. So her and Clark were both kind of trapped in this loop of nostalgia, like wanting to return to a safe point where they could just try to like think about those things, and also being kind of uncomfortable with them and terrified. And I think that's why they went with those specific types of characters for the movie. That they were in a loop and they were unable to break free of their specific issues. That's why the Backrooms just kind of drove Clark to madness, because it was not a good place for someone that was disassociative and kind of like already on the verge of a mental breakdown to be. That being said, I wish we had seen more of that. I think that would have been really cool. I feel like this could have been a 3-hour long movie, though I think people would have been absolutely pissed. I think it's the exact amount of time they could have made it where people are going to tolerate it if they do not like it. But that being said, again, I think it could have been like 3 hours long, and people would have liked it if they were the type of people that like the Backrooms, and they would have been really into it. I could have sat through another 2 hours, yes. If you liked the movie, you could have easily sat through another 2 hours. If you did not like the movie, you were like, thank God, that was the most amount I could tolerate. More lost footage would have been so good. Yes, I think more lost footage would have been good. I think seeing like more of like Mary's day-to-day life would have been good, but though I do like what they actually included so far. I think Mary's house was meant to be a trap or something inherently darker, but they hold back to showing the abusive situation Mary was in. I think that Mary's house was not a trap. Mary's house, like when she's thinking about it before, her mother was mentally ill. So she didn't want people looking into the house because she felt like she was being observed at all times. She was a paranoid schizophrenic, most likely. I've dealt with that in terms of like having family members with those kind of things going on. Me dying in muted silence. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So her mother was agoraphobic and paranoid. No, yes. We don't know 100% all of her issues, but we do know that like at some point after they moved in and after like their driveway was constructed, she experienced symptoms of paranoia, and she experienced symptoms of feeling like people could get into their house and that would cause an issue. For whatever reason. We don't know everything about her illness, but I would probably say it was paranoid schizophrenia. It's implied she had schizophrenia, yes. That being said, I don't think that Mary was supposed to be implied to have any of those issues. I've seen some people go like, "Oh, she had schizophrenia too," and it's like, no, I don't think so. I don't think that's what was implied. I don't think the Backrooms were her just like, you know, having a vivid hallucination. Did we find out what Mary's medication was in her home? That was probably an anxiety medication, because she seemed to be having a triggered like response to seeing a mother with her child. She had PTSD most likely. Yes, Mary probably had PTSD, which she was also in denial about, and also kind of ignoring and not feeling good about. But she didn't seem to have the same issues of her mother, which was, she had like a social life, and she kind of like just kept distance from others, though. In the same way that Clark was lonely, she was also probably very lonely. Trying to like help people like her mother, but not connecting fully to the people around her. That's the vibe I got. That's the vibe. So little plastic baggie instead of pill bottle suggest it wasn't prescribed. Yes, exactly. So she had similar issues to Clark in terms of substance abuse, most likely. Looked like schizophrenia, but I was wondering with the Backrooms full of fake people, she might found it even... Everyone assumed she was insane, but might be reading too far into it. Well, the thing is, she wasn't considered insane in the movie because we're getting ahead of ourselves. But anyways, Mary had all these issues. Clark had all these issues. They kind of met at a head, and like they both started yelling at each other. They both had like a thing where like their issues met and they started yelling at each other. I think she had a breakdown herself when she couldn't help him again, and she was used to use the concrete to hit the monster. Yes. So that's a little bit far ahead too. So what happens is, Clark, believing that he has control over the situation and himself, gets attacked by the version that the Backrooms generates, and it misremembers him, and most of them got more docile, but Clark remembers himself as a very aggressive person, most likely. He gets attacked, and he keeps going. Biggest thing is that, at this point, Clark, I'm 95% sure is dead. Like, I don't think he could have lived through that. Maybe he did somehow, we don't know, we don't see him again, at least to my knowledge. But, like, I didn't notice if we see him again at any point, but, like, I'm pretty sure he's dead. He was being dragged by Big Clark. Okay, then yes, he was there. Okay, there was a lot of blood. There was a lot of blood. That was bad crunching. It was really bad crunching. Clark was super dead, Grimmi. That was a lot of blood. Okay, yeah. He was half-eaten, yes. He was getting ragdolled. I didn't even notice he was dragging him, actually. Like, I think I was just, like, scared at that point. I was very nervous of this movie afterwards, by the way. Why did it attack him if they got along before? Because he started to accept himself as someone that was very violent and very cruel and very angry. I think at this point, you have to understand the Backrooms was generating things from their mind. It was very heavily implied. So if he had just started to accept himself as a very evil and cruel person, that might have changed like how he remembered himself if it was being generated. This is just my opinion. This is just my theory. Clark was also stabbing the others. Yeah, eating them. Yes. Copying that behavior over. Yes. So it started to remember Clark as someone violent, cruel, and going to attack others and cannibalize them. That's just a game theory. Thank you for watching. Yes. Do you think they'll do a second movie? I'm so sorry I talked about Ebola earlier. Grimmi virus. I think they're probably going to do a TV series, or they're going to probably expand on it in a different way. I don't know if they're going to do another movie, but I would like that. I think what they'll probably do, if they want to like really capitalize on it, is they'll do an async TV series or something like that. I think it'd be cool. I hope he continues it on YouTube. That would also be what I'd like the most. He says he has plans to expand the universe, and this is just one of the stories within it, like one of the ones he had planned. And I think he did a great job with it. So Clark starts chasing, Mary after she frees herself. I feel like this movie is pretty standalone. Yes, I think that they're going to continue the overall Backrooms universe, like how he has his YouTube series. But that being said, I don't think they're going to make a direct sequel to this. We might see Mary as like a cameo, or Mary might have even been a cameo in like one of his other like, because this takes place like a little bit before the YouTube series. She might have been a cameo in one of the YouTube like videos already. Like, we don't know. I could probably go watch it again and try to find one, but she's chased very aggressively by Clark, and she's chased for a very long period of time. She ends up going into a Backrooms version of Clark's store, which I thought was really cool. I thought it was really, really good. I thought it was one of the coolest sets that they had. It's kind of like a little bit off. I'd love to see more like pictures of it and stuff like that. She goes through like some very interesting places with stairs, and like she's also like a little bit injured at this point. She's going through it. She has to fight the Clark copy. She has to keep running and keep going. My favorite part of the movie was very close to the end. The Clark iteration. Iteration's probably a good idea. Captain Clark's probably one. She runs very quickly, and she runs so fast down like this little sliver of hallway. She triggers like some sort of trap, like from Async. There's a bunch of like billowing clouds everywhere and stuff. She keeps going and keeps running. And then what happens is really funny. She runs into a bunch of the dudes from Async in hazmat suits, and they almost kill her, I think. Like, they're like, oh my god, why is a woman here? This is like a normal woman. Stop. Wait, we're gonna kill her. Wait, oh god, oh no. Wait, guys, we gotta, oh no, we gotta figure this out. And so, yeah, everyone is freaking out. The last thing you expect in the Backrooms is a person. So she ran as quickly as she could. She ran into Async peeps. For anyone that doesn't know, Async is the organization that accidentally made the Backrooms in that universe, or at least opened the portal to it, or generated it, or something. So yeah, they were player characters. They were all different colors, and they were just like, oh no, oh no. And then what they did was really interesting. They had a callback to the YouTube series where like all of the, pretty much like most of the people from the YouTube series, like were just standing at attention, like at the threshold that they had opened, and like they walk her through it, and they're just like, how the hell did you get here? What are you doing? Like, what's happening? And it's very cool looking. We see her sit down, and we see her start to, well, she goes through like the entire Async area, which I think people were most excited about. But again, you should just get a glimpse of that, I feel like. It wasn't like their story specifically. That's kind of like the YouTube thing. She gets led to an interview room after she sees that like they've tied up like Captain Clark, and like they've saran wrapped him, and like they're probably going to dissect him. She's just, could also be that Captain Clark also like was made of like something that was edible and like cushion like, because it was the furniture store guy that was like probably generating those guys. So he might have seen people as like full of just like cushion and goo and stuff like that. We don't know. Like, if they were trying to make it from his memory, maybe he saw people as like lesser and lesser or something. Like their personality wasn't like, I don't know, like completely related to something like that. It could have been something like that. Compared people to furniture, yeah. Like just cushion and stuff. Well, I wish we saw Clark's reaction to the pirate killing his assistant manager. I don't think that was what killed the assistant manager, actually. I think that what probably killed the assistant manager and what killed her boyfriend was most likely a different entity. He initially gets there, and there might have been other entities there, because that one seemed like it was very aggressive and very quick. It might have been an entity based on a different person that wandered over there, because it was pulling from quite a few different places. That is where the mural thing interests me, because it says furniture that could bleed. Oh wow, cool. That's interesting. I really want to see shots of the furniture store, but there's only like there's no DVD yet or anything. I'm straight up implying it could have been Clark. It could have been Clark. Though I think that it was something that was a little bit quicker than that. Like, in my opinion, it was probably quicker. What we see at the start of the movie, though, at the very start, we see found footage tape. I think it's even like I think it's a Kane Pixels, like, reference, like the guy who made it. Like, I think he's actually on the ID. Like, he's the dude at the start of the movie. I think that was implied to be Captain Clark at the very start of the movie. We hear like the wind chimes and we hear something odd coming in that direction. Do you think Async being a former MRI manufacturer has any implication? I do think on some level it does. I think that they just happened to accidentally magnetize and start creating some sort of portal to something where it's trying to draw in pictures of people's heads and like their thoughts and ideas and memories, and it created a portal to something that is constantly trying to reference people's thoughts and ideas and memories. We see her sit down, though, at the end, and we see a scientist that at one point saw the Captain Clark thing on TV, saw a picture of Clark on, like, their little security cameras they had up. They are just like, hey, I'm going to interview you. And she, of course, asks if what's going to happen to her. He says that he does not know. At this point, Async is not above, like, probably killing people. Like, they really don't want to have people get out. Though I don't know if we've had it confirmed that they actually have executed people. I think the one person that we see... We're gonna finish this up. We're gonna finish this up. But the big thing is that she sits down at the interview table, and she is just sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. And he's talking to her about different things related to the Backrooms, and he's trying to tell her a bit about it. What's really funny is that I think at this point everyone wanted to know the lore of the Backrooms and like different things that the scientists knew about it. But she starts to become catatonic and tune them out. So I think this is where this could have gone in two different ways. So I think that there's the implication, if you want to look into it this way, that she starts to go mad like her mother does, and that she's also becoming catatonic in some ways, like she can't take the stress of what's happening, so she's disassociating so heavily that she can't even, like, process the information she's being given. I think she would eventually come back from it. It's not like she just is developing that second and goes on from there. That's not super how it works, probably. But, like, the monster that killed the camera guy in the basement, that one or a different one? I think it was a different one. Some people have said it's Clark. I don't know 100%. I don't know. We then cut to a version of her sitting in a chair. She was still in shock, but she was very similar to her catatonic mother in the one scene we see of her earlier. Like, she's kind of mirroring that. She's kind of similar to that pose. And then we see that the Backrooms generates a version of her that is sitting down in a chair, catatonic, and unable to move or process information. So I think there's an implication that she could have been unable to process the information, and she can no longer like really start to move or do stuff. So there's no way of knowing. There's no way of knowing. The movie cuts off at that point. It's over, and then we just kind of have our thoughts to think about. Like it's something where it goes through like different things that are in the world. Like it goes through like some stuff like a phone booth poll, or a phone poll of like not a phone booth poll. I think there was a phone booth that it went to. Phone poll with like missing posters of like the college students. There's also the interpretation the therapist zones out because she knows how the conversation will go, because she has an almost similar one with Clark. I was gonna say that it's a very similar one to the one she has with Clark, and they're in different positions at that point, yes. I think at this point also, she's probably starting to understand that she has an issue when it comes to her own avoidance, and she's also been very heavily traumatized. She's been very heavily traumatized in a way that's very, very weird and very, very hard to grasp. I find the missing posters a bit odd, because who would have been in the Backrooms would have seen it and remembered them. Well, the thing is, you don't have to be in the Backrooms for it to be something that it generates with. I think it's just like the general idea of someone being near it, seeing that, and then being out in the world. So it doesn't mean like every single person that generates something there is going to be in the Backrooms. She could tell them a whole lot about the Backrooms works, but she's zoning out, yes. And she might not come back from that, or she might. She might be someone that is, maybe the Backrooms inherently drives people mad because it's so eldritch and existential that they can't comprehend it. and they start to succumb to like the stuff that they kind of have internally if they are in a dissociative state. I've seen some people say that the Backrooms lures people in and stuff with stuff, but I don't think it's that. I think it's just incomprehensible and can make people's identity and sense of self vanish if they interact with it for too long. As much as this is a horror movie, I thought provoking moving. Oscars? It's probably not going to get an Oscar. It doesn't need it. It's probably not going to get an Oscar. We never really see the outside again after the therapist goes into the Backrooms, except for a window showing just the sky, which is uncomfortable to me. That's true too. I think it's implied that Async does not let her leave because, and even if she does, here's the thing. She also kind of knows that like her mom was so mentally unwell. If she tries to tell anyone what she saw, she would kind of resemble Clark. So she can't really like go back to living her life normally. She's going to be forever trying to deal with that trauma while not being able to process or understand it or work with anyone. She can't really let anyone in to like her emotional world anymore on the same level. She wasn't really letting Clark in or giving him any information that would help him because she was in a similar state. I think she was a really bad therapist for him. I'm not saying that Clark, like, you know, like he would have gotten better and everything would have been perfect if he had a better therapist. I'm just saying they had similar issues. She had written books and given people tons of advice while having very similar issues to Clark. The main thing to do is to demote her to a Class D and send her back in. No! So, next thing we need is an SCP movie. I think the SCP movie would do really well. From my perspective, at least. I don't think many people got the theme of the main characters disassociating, and the main characters running from, like, their emotions and going back to, like, an emotional place and replaying things over and over again and getting caught in those, and how it was supposed to be similar to how the Backrooms was recreating things, but slightly different over and over and over again. I think it's supposed to be about how Clark and Mary were continuing to go back into their memories, replaying them, but losing something a little bit each time over and over and over again, and not really being in the present or being able to push themselves to kind of like live life anymore. I thought it was really good. I think that's like the very important theme though, that like the disassociation and like their desire to like go back into a different point in time is kind of driving them mad for whatever reason. And I think that they both had a very good journey with that paralleled the Backrooms as a concept. I think it was really good for like a movie. I think we could probably see things from different people's perspectives, but I think that was a really good way to introduce, I guess, emotional aspects and like what the Backrooms is while having a similar character narrative, like for the characters in their own ways. But that's just my opinion. I'd be interested in seeing what other people think, but I think that was what they were going for. I didn't understand the symbolism of her handprint. As someone that has a mentally ill mom, like that has like a similar illness, what it is that I think she desires to go back to a happier time, and that was something that reminded her of a happier time. You seem to understand it very well. I could be totally wrong though. But yeah, that's a Grimmi opinion. I don't know if I'm right about it. She collected the handprint because her childhood home was being destroyed, and she had it, and she was like, oh, this is crazy. Want to know what I think? Go for it. Go for it. I think the idea of safety or something familiar was enough to keep people there and unharmed by the entities, because the film crew were instantly targeted when they realized they were incompatible with the area. That is also maybe possible. Though we didn't see Clark actually go near the entity initially. He initially ran away. He ran away. We don't actually see him interacting with it. A Bay Area company makes technology that they don't fully understand that makes copies of reality but repeatedly gets details wrong. Clark finds it and starts obsessing with it, exacerbating his mental state, but does what he can to get other people interested about it. As Murray enters, he's elated because he finally gets the, yes, you are right, because he was craving. Horror stories are a mirror about modern issues. It's about AI psychosis. It could be about AI psychosis. Though I do think that they were experiencing normal psychosis, because AI psychosis hadn't existed yet. But I saw someone say that AI psychosis was lame. and like a lame way to get psychosis, because I don't think people understood what it was. AI psychosis is not about like a computer going like, you are so cool, and then you get psychosis. It's about the person going up to the computer, and because it produces so much dopamine in a similar way that like when they recognize patterns with schizoaffective disorders or schizophrenia or something with psychosis involved, they get that charge of dopamine each time. It's definitely him buying into it. It might be. I'm not sure about the AI psychosis thing specifically. Just because he started the Backroom series and he said that he had plans for it, like as far back as like when he started it, and he's been working on it consistently since. Like about 4 years ago was when he like put it out. people crying because ChatGPT 4 was getting replaced was very dystopian. It was very weird. It was very weird. Yeah, I think the AI psychosis take comes down from how psychosis forms. I think, like, when it comes to AI psychosis, because I have seen AI psychosis, and I have seen different types of psychoses. I don't think it's that one specifically, but it could be. I think it's that, the disassociation and then being met with something that is, like, kind of like a modern eldritch concept is something that pushed them to the brink when they were already in a state of near psychosis and very isolated and lonely. I think it was really good. I don't know. We hold a mirror up to ourselves. We don't recognize a reflection in the machine. The person we're really conversing with is a hidden version of ourselves, in my opinion. Well, it's kind of like, also Ballad Advent, thank you so much for the raid. It's kind of like a very, how do I put it? Sorry, we're talking about Backrooms spoilers. When it comes to AI psychosis, it's a very sycophantic, like, concept. So, in the same way that if you had a delusion or if you had a stint of psychosis, if the person gets consistent and constant mental reassurance that's overwhelmingly positive for each and every single time they say something, that tries very hard to understand what they're saying and also feed back into them and also feed into their delusions 100%, and that's what AI provides. It provides a ton of dopamine each time something, like, is typed to it. A ton of dopamine. Way more than you get conversing with any normal person. Like, anyone in the entire world. What if we're just having fun psychosis? I think it's very hard to have fun psychosis without an illicit substance. Thoughts on the sun? I remember the last stream you said something about the sun being important in the Backrooms. I did spot several pictures of the sun in the Backrooms movies. The person that directed it said the sun tells him things. I'll be real with you, I still don't really know exactly what it means. I still don't really know if it's supposed to be something that we're supposed to, like, context for already, or if it's something that we'll get in the future. Since they took Captain Clark out of the Backrooms and can also take furniture out of the Backrooms, does that mean entities can just leave as well? I think it's supposed to be implied that finding your way into the Backrooms is really, 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 really hard. Like, super, 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 super hard. Like, almost impossible. When it comes to how people have entered the Backrooms, it's most of the time very quick and flippant, and like there isn't a consistent area where you can just walk through it. I think the reason, and I didn't actually go into this and I apologize, I think the reason that there was a place where you could consistently enter and leave was because Clark was a architect and that he consistently had thoughts and machinations about the expansion in the kind of like, I guess, how do I put it? The movement you'd have through a space that was somewhat liminal already. So it felt like an extension of what he was doing, and he might have manifested some sort of entryway to it. It might have also just been a reference to House of Leaves and stuff, but like, I don't know. Seems like the fluke with Clark found a stable entrance exit. Yes, that's the thing. Every other person we've seen besides Async entering the Backrooms was someone that was kind of pulled in there randomly. And also thank you, Bio, for being here for 4 months. What do you think happened to Mary at the interview? Not the doppelganger one. I think she started to go into a catatonic mental breakdown, is what I think was implied. I don't think that she, like, died or anything. I don't think that they killed her. I think she just got really stressed out. And then she probably, maybe eventually comes back from it, but she's probably also starting to comprehend that she's not going to be able to tell anyone about what happened even if she were to leave, because she would sound crazy. And she's coming to terms with maybe being crazy since she saw, like, her mom grow up. It was very weird also to see that, just as someone that's had, like, a mom that's going through it. Like, I was just like, huh, that's really weird and scary. I get plenty of enough dopamine listening to the stream. Oh, that's nice. At least most of the time. Sometimes it's just depressing, but that's life. That is true, Mr. Frick. Sometimes the economy's involved. So, yeah. No one trusts her if she did. Yeah, the thing is, if she tried to tell people about the Backrooms and what happened there, no one would believe her. Like, it's essentially, like, just very, very, very rough on her. She's never going to be able to interact with another human being and tell them about, like, her experiences specifically. I think that was also maybe, like, why she wasn't, like, the best therapist to Clark. Also, hi, Ikarim. Thank you for being here for 14 months. This is about the movie, right? Does the movie stuff seem like it's related to the online stuff, or is it a separate entity? It seems more like it's another entry in the universe. Async is there, though it's not very heavily expanded upon. It was really expanded upon very well, like, I feel like. It's gonna be cool to see Async struggle to hide all the null zones starting to happen everywhere. Well, it might not be that common. I think the thing is, Clark was really weird. Clark was really, really, really weird. And he already, like, kind of existed in a space that was similar to the Backrooms. I think that might be why the Backrooms just kind of opened up there. It was someone that was fascinated with architecture and fascinated with being an architect. And it was in a space that was very, very close and similar to the back room. So it might have just kind of like expanded into it. And then in terms of finding it, it might not be something that many people would even be able to find. Like, it might be something that's in the catacombs or the sewer system, something like that. But it just happened to all line up, and maybe that's why it expanded into it.